When you're learning how to climb, you get a lot of suggestions on what techniques to use on certain parts of a route. Heel hook here, back step there, crimp hard on the right hand, and throw. While having specific beta for a specific climb is useful, the implementation is often narrow. Climbing is better sensed through broader strokes of movement patterns, common techniques that you can use most of the time. The Pareto Principle states that roughly 80% of outputs come from 20% of inputs. An example would be that 80% of your sales are created by only 20% of your clients. This phenomenon is referred to as the 80-20 rule and can be applied to economics, production, and even sports. In this video, I'll go over the vital few 20% of techniques that account for 80% of the moves that you do in climbing. These will be split into 5 basic principles. Opposite hand and foot is the most fundamental basis of climbing. It's rooted in the pattern of natural human movement, called contralateral movement. Observe a person walking and you'll see that they use the limbs on opposite sides of the body to create motion. Each time they step forward with the right leg, they swing the left arm, and vice versa. You can extend this pattern to other forms of locomotion like running, crawling, and even climbing. When making any sort of movement on a climb, the body is most stable with opposite hand and foot. For example, if you're making a move with the left hand, your best points of support will be your right hand and left foot. Using opposite hand and foot allows you to distribute your force across your body, creating a diagonal line that runs through your center of gravity. Contrast this with moving off the same side hand and foot, which only applies force on one side of the body and causes you to swing out. So far, we've seen opposite hand and foot applied in the hips square body position, but it's also very useful in the hip in position. This is often encountered in a few situations. Moving off of a side pole for the handhold, maximizing your reach for a long move, or staying close to the wall on a steep climb. An easy way to remember this principle is to use the foot on the same side as the hand you're moving. If you're reaching with the left hand, go off the left foot, as it's naturally paired with its opposite counterpart, the right hand. Consciously remind yourself to climb in this way until it becomes instinctual. Counterpressure is the secret behind a stable body position. If you want to feel secure against the wall, you must apply opposing forces on at least 2 points of contact. The most universal form of counterpressure is the push and pull. For example, if you're pulling on a side pole, you secure the position by pushing away from the hold with your foot. This is usually most effective with the opposite foot, as it follows the principle of opposite hand and foot we just covered. By pushing your body away from the handhold, it actually increases the leverage you apply on the handhold. You're effectively pushing into the pole. This works the same whether you're side pulling or using the hold in a gas stone. Another common scenario involves the undercling. As it is an upward pulling hold, we create counterpressure by pushing our bodies up into the undercling. The further up you push into the undercling, the more stable you will feel. This may seem slightly counterintuitive since we are always taught to sink down into a hold. However, if you think of the undercling as just an upside down hold, pushing up into the pole will be the equivalent of sinking down. The 90-degree rule is something you should strive to do 100% of the time. It's the best way to utilize any type of handhold. Simply put, you maximize your leverage on a hold by pulling in a direction perpendicular to its edge. Your forearm should be angled 90 degrees to the handhold. This rule works in conjunction with the principle of counterpressure we just covered. Taking the undercling example again, when we step up on higher feet and push ourselves into the handhold, we are also leveraging the 90-degree rule. This is the reason why underclings always feel better when your forearms are above them rather than below them. You can also see this rule applied to scenarios involving side pulls. These handholds are best leveraged with the forearm in a 90-degree position to the pulling edge. Sinking below them and pulling downward is not nearly as effective. This is why when reaching for a high side pull, we try to position the body behind it ahead of time. This is also the reason why good climbers try to come into a gasstone with a bent elbow and quickly lean into the hold. By bending the arm, we are preemptively getting our forearm in position to abide by the 90-degree rule. Leaning into the hold helps to create the accompanying counter pressure. This principle is the basis for all balanced climbing. Your center of gravity is the point in your body where your weight is evenly balanced in all directions. In a person standing upright, it's located in between the hips. Base of support are your points of contact with the wall, namely your handholds and footholds. Whenever your center of gravity is within your base of support, you're said to be in balance. Of course, there are a few nuances to this principle, such as the quality of your base of support and the strength of the climber. But generally speaking, applying this rule is a safe and conservative method of climbing. You can test this out yourself by climbing with square hips on a traverse. By keeping your hips to the wall and shuffling your hands and feet, we will always have our center of gravity inside our base of support, and thus feel balanced with each move. When we start reducing our contact points and thus creating a narrower base of support, we begin creating more opportunities to feel off balance. The most common scenario for this is holding two contact points with the same side hand and foot. Here, our base of support is just a line on one side of the body. As our center of gravity is clearly outside of this line, our body will naturally swing out in an effort to bring the center of gravity closer to the base of support. The easiest way to nullify the swing is by adopting a back flag, or holding the position with opposite hand and foot. This last principle is likely the most important technique to elevate your climbing to harder grades. Move away to move toward is a general cue for an advanced technique called the dead point. It is also an introduction to climbing more dynamically. At some point, holding a body position statically to advance a move will be just too difficult. The distance between holds may be too far, or the position just requires too much strength to lock off. This is when the dead point becomes very useful. To execute this technique, we generate momentum by moving away from the target hold and then moving towards it. You can think of it in terms of compression and expansion, just like pressing down on a spring before releasing it. By dead pointing to a hold, we bypass the required strength and tension needed to do the move statically. Dead points can be done at a variety of distances. There are short length dead points that you will see on hard boulder moves such as bumping a hand in a high tension position. Mid-length dead points for regular moves that are more economical to do dynamically. And there are long-length dead points, which are the more traditional style of dead pointing, where the next hold is so far away that it must be reached dynamically. Now that you know these principles, go out and implement them into your climbs. If you're stuck in a section, try and see if it's following all 5 of these rules. The more you consciously apply these principles, the quicker you will become a smoother and more intuitive climber. Embrace the 20%, because 80% of the time, it works every time.